It began with something so ordinary: a late-night bus stop, a quiet London street, and a young woman heading home. But what followed would reveal one of the most sadistic predators the UK has ever known. Between 2002 and 2004, fear gripped the streets of West London. Women started disappearing, or worse, turning up dead, bludgeoned, strangled, and left like discarded dolls. Police had no clear suspect, no motive, and no pattern. Until they noticed something chilling: every victim had been walking home from a bus stop. The man responsible was Levi Bellfield, a former nightclub bouncer, father of 11, and a self-proclaimed ladies' man. But behind the charm and jokes lay something monstrous. Bellfield was a stalker, a sadist, and a killer who hunted women for sport. His victims were young blonde and innocent Marcia McDonnell, Amélie Delagrange, and Millie Dowler, just 13 years old. Each was attacked near a bus stop, struck in the head with a hammer, an act of brutal domination that left entire neighborhoods terrified to walk alone. When detectives finally caught him, Bellfield showed no remorse. He smirked through interrogations, denied everything, and even tried to charm the court. Investigators would later describe him as pure evil, in human form, a man who believed he was untouchable. His story isn't just about murder, it's about control obsession and the darkness that hides behind the face of an ordinary man. This is the story of Levi Bellfield, the bus stop killer, a predator who turned the simplest act of going home into a fatal mistake, aka the bus stop killer. Classification: murderer. Characteristics: stalker. Sadist. Number of victims: 2, 3, plus date of murders: 2003, 2004. Date of arrest: November 22, 2004. Date of birth: May 17, 1968. Victims profile: Marcia McDonnell, 19. Amélie Delagrange, 22. Amanda Dowler, 13. Method of murder: hitting with a hammer. Location: London, England, United Kingdom. Status: sentenced to life imprisonment with a recommendation that he should never be released on February 26, 2008. Levi Bellfield, born 17 May 1968, is a British murderer. He is a former nightclub bouncer and manager of a car clamping business who was convicted on 25th of February 2008 of murdering Marcia McDonnell and Amélie Delagrange. He was also convicted of the attempted murder of Kate Sheedy. Bellfield was described by police as a prime suspect in the murder of Amanda Dowler. The Crown Prosecution Service announced on 30th of March 2010 that he is to be charged with her murder. Early and personal life. Bellfield was born in Isleworth, West London, to Joseph Rabetz and Jean now Bellfield, and is of Romani Gypsy descent. When he was 8, his father died at age 37 of a heart attack. He has 2 brothers and a sister and was brought up on a West London council estate. He attended Crane Junior School, Hampton, and Feltham Comprehensive. He has been married 4 times and has fathered 11 children with 5 women, the youngest 3 with his most recent partner, Emma Mills. His first conviction was for burglary in 1981. He was convicted of assaulting a police officer in 1990. He also has convictions for theft and driving offenses. By 2002, he had 9 convictions. Character. In an interview with the media detective chief INSP Colin Sutton of the Metropolitan Police, who led the murder hunt, described him in some detail. When we started dealing with him, he came across as very jokey, like he's your best mate. But he's a cunning individual, violent. He can switch from being nice to being nasty instantly. Bellfield searched for victims on streets he knew intimately. Detectives tracked down a number of ex-girlfriends who all described a similar pattern of behavior when they got involved with him. He was lovely at first, charming, then completely controlling and evil. They all said the same, said Date Sergeant Joe Brunt, who spoke to several of them. A couple of weeks after his relationship with a woman began, Bellfield would take her mobile phone and swap it with another, which contained only his number, saying it was all she needed. He would then stop her from seeing friends, parents, or going out without his permission, and would constantly phone to check what she was doing. One former girlfriend said that following an argument, he told her to sit on a stool in the kitchen and not move. He went to bed, and she sat there all night. D.S. Brunt said, "We asked her what she did about going to the toilet, and she said she would rather wet herself than have moved from that stool. That shows how frightened they were of him." Bellfield, a psychology PhD waiting to happen, according to Sutton, was very close to his mother. His father died when he was young. He dotes on his mother and her on him. "It's a troubling relationship," said Sutton. Modus operandi. At the time of the attacks, he ran a wheel clamping business which operated in the western suburbs of London. He sometimes made a good living at this, and while giving evidence at the Old Bailey, he explained to the jury how to succeed in the clamping business. Police officers could only make conjectures about motivation, as Bellfield maintained his innocence throughout. Date Ch. Insp. Sutton explained his own theory. He has a massive ego to feed. He thinks he's God's gift to everyone. He drives around in his car, feels a bit whatever, and sees some young blonde girl. Young blonde girl says, "Go away." And he thinks, "You dare to turn down Levi Bellfield, you're worth nothing." And then she gets a whack over the head. It is shown in the case of Kate Sheedy, she was smart enough to think she didn't like the look of his car and crosses the road. He thinks, "You think you're so clever," and whoosh, he runs her over. While he was under police surveillance, Bellfield was seen driving around in his van, talking to young girls at bus stops. Sutton's theory is also suggested in the timing of Amélie Delagrange's last movements. CCTV cameras showed her walking towards Twickenham Green after she missed her stop on the bus home. She slowed her pace between the last two sightings around the time Bellfield passed her in his van. Sutton said she probably stopped to speak to him. Within minutes, he had attacked her and left her to die. Bellfield claimed that it was no coincidence that all his victims were of a similar appearance. His last girlfriend, Emma Mills, told police Bellfield always chased after small blonde girls with large chests. Victims: Marcia McDonnell. Marcia Louise McDonnell, 14 October 1983, 5 February 2003. Died in hospital after being beaten over the head with a blunt instrument near her home in Hampton. She is believed to have been killed just after she got off the 111 bus from Kingston upon Thames at the stop on Percy Road. Bellfield sold his Vauxhall Corsa car for $1,500 6 days after the murder, having bought it for $6,000 just 5 months earlier. Kate Sheedy. Kate Sheedy, then aged 18, was run over as she crossed the road near an entrance to an industrial estate in Isleworth on 28 May 2004. She survived but suffered multiple injuries and spent several weeks in hospital. She went on to give evidence against Bellfield when he was tried with her attempted murder nearly 4 years later. Amélie Delagrange. Amélie Delagrange, 2 February 1982, 19 August 2004, was a French student visiting the UK. She was found at Twickenham Green on an evening with serious head injuries and died in hospital the same night. Within 24 hours, the police established that she may have been killed by the same person who had killed Marcia McDonnell 18 months earlier. Bellfield reportedly confessed to the murder while on remand. Other charges. Bellfield was also charged with abduction and false imprisonment of Anna Marie Rennie, then age 17 at Witten, on 14 October 2001, after she identified him in a video identity parade 4 years later. He was also charged with the attempted murder of Irma Dragoshi, then age 39, at Longford Village on 16 December 2003. The jury failed to reach verdicts on either of these charges. Other notable events. Bellfield was admitted to hospital on 25 August 2004, 6 days after Delagrange's death, with a suspected breakdown after taking an overdose and telling a friend, "You don't know what I've done." Bellfield was first identified as a suspect in connection with the crimes on 9 November 2004, but not questioned until 22 November 2004. He was charged on 1 March 2006. Possible other victims. Det Ch. Insp. Sutton said, "We looked at a dozen crimes in West London, and we have not been able to eliminate Levi from any of them. I fear we may have only scratched the surface." One case police are revisiting and are reportedly questioning Bellfield is that of Amanda Dowler, a 13-year-old girl who went missing in Walton-on-Thames on 21 March 2002 and was found dead in Hampshire 6 months later. In August 2009, Surrey police submitted a dossier to the CPS containing evidence regarding Bellfield's alleged involvement in the murder of Dowler. The CPS will assess the dossier and decide whether to charge Bellfield with Dowler's murder. On 30 March 2010, Bellfield was charged with the kidnap and murder of Dowler, as well as the attempted kidnap of then 12-year-old Rachel Cowles on 20 March 2002. Conviction and imprisonment. Bellfield was found guilty of the murders of McDonnell and Delagrange, as well as the attempted murder of Sheedy on 25 February 2008. The following day, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a recommendation that he should never be released. Bellfield was not in court to hear his sentence, as he had refused to attend court due to unfair press coverage following his conviction. Despite the trial judge's comments, the European Court of Human Rights has been reviewing whether lifelong imprisonment amounts to a violation of human rights legislation. Should the court decide that lifelong imprisonment is unlawful, then Bellfield and all other prisoners serving such sentences in Europe would have their cases recalled to court for a new minimum term to be set. It has since been reported that Bellfield is planning to appeal against his convictions. Documentary. A documentary, My Dad the Serial Killer, was shown on Channel 4 on 30 January 2009. It was presented by Bellfield's first child, Bobby Louise, and also featured 3 of his other daughters, their mother, and the mother's daughter from her second marriage. The mother of his first 3 children stated that their relationship began when she was 18 and that he was charming at first, but became violent after the birth of their first child. Despite that, she stayed with him for a few more years until finally ending the relationship after he raped her at least twice. Stalker guilty of student murders. Monday, 25 February 2008. A man has been found guilty of murdering 2 students he stalked at bus stops in southwest London. Levi Bellfield, 39, of West Drayton, West London, was convicted of killing Amelie Delagrange, 22, and Marcia McDonnell, 19. He has also been found guilty of the attempted murder of Kate Sheedy. Bellfield attacked the women in 2003 and 2004. Police also suspect him of carrying out 20 other attacks on women. He will be sentenced on Tuesday. Police revealed after the trial that the other attacks Bellfield is suspected of carrying out include 6 attempted date rapes involving drugs, and they believe more victims will now come forward. The former bouncer is also due to be questioned over the murder of 13-year-old Millie Dowler, who went missing on her way home from school in Walton-on-Thames in Surrey on 21 March 2002. During the trial, the prosecution said Bellfield trawled buses and bus stops for women and attacked them when they rejected him. Miss McDonnell was bludgeoned to death just yards from her front door after she got off a bus in February 2003. And in August 2004, Miss Delagrange died from severe head injuries following an attack on Twickenham Green when she was walking home after missing her bus stop. Miss Sheedy suffered extensive injuries when she got off a bus and was hit by a car, which reversed back over her before driving off in May 2004 when she was 18. Speaking outside court, Miss Sheedy said she would never forget what happened to her. "I have waited for nearly 4 years for this day, and it is hard to express how much it means to me," the former convent school head girl said. "The road to recovery has been emotionally and physically hard. There were times when I thought I would never get better. The fact that Bellfield has been found guilty means more than I can say." Barbaric crimes. Miss McDonnell's uncle Shane McDonnell said, "5 years have passed since the night our beloved Marcia was so cruelly taken from this world, a girl that only had love in her heart brutally slain by a man who only has hate in his. For her family life will never quite be the same ever again. The pain and hurt that we carry will always be there. It is a sentence with no remission. We welcome the news today that the man responsible for these barbaric crimes has finally been proved to be guilty after nearly 5 months of having to endure the cowardly charade of innocence put forward by the defense. We at last get to see Levi Bellfield for what he truly is." Det Chief Colin Sutton from the Metropolitan Police said Bellfield was a clever, cunning, arrogant, and very dangerous man. He clearly is a dangerous man, and clearly Southwest London in general will be a much safer place, particularly for women. This wicked series of attacks ended in 2004 when Levi Bellfield was arrested. Miss Delagrange's parents, Jean-Francois and Dominique, said they had attended the trial as their way of being there in memory of our daughter. Short tragedy. The couple said Bellfield had shown an unbelievable level of arrogance and had winked and mouthed obscenities to family members during the trial. Mr. Delagrange said, "This court trial has at least allowed us to understand the final page of her very short existence. Today we have arrived at the last chapter of this very short tragedy of Amelie's life." The jury of 7 women and 5 men was unable to reach verdicts on 2 other charges. These were the kidnap and false imprisonment of Anna Maria Rennie, 17, and the attempted murder of hairdresser Irma Dragoshi, 33. The Crown Prosecution Service said it would not seek a retrial on the 2 counts. The relatives of Miss Delagrange, Miss McDonnell, and Miss Sheedy held hands with supporters at the back of the court when the verdicts were read out. Profiles of Bellfield's victims. Monday, 25 February 2008. Former bouncer Levi Bellfield, 39, has been convicted of murdering 2 young women and trying to kill another in southwest London. Here are profiles of the women he attacked. Marcia McDonnell, murdered. Marcia McDonnell, 19, had completed her A-levels and was taking a gap year before starting university when she died. Described in court as an attractive blonde, she was attacked just yards from the Hampton home she shared with her parents Phil and Ute, her 2 sisters and younger brother. Ms. McDonnell, who was working in a gift shop in Kingston, had visited the cinema with friends on the night she was attacked. Her sister Natalie said, She always thought of other people. She was a free spirit. Speaking after the verdict, her uncle Shane McDonnell said, "5 years have passed since the night our beloved Marcia was so cruelly taken from this world, a girl that only had love in her heart, brutally slain by a man who only has hate in his." Her uncle described the family's loss as devastating. "Marcia, we miss you. Our world now is incomplete, like a rainbow with a color missing. We thank you for the joy that you brought us in your short life. Your goodness, sense of fun, spirit, and passion for life remain with us," he said. Ms. McDonnell was passionate about music, and a music room at the local children's hospice is dedicated to her memory. Her uncle said, "For her, family life will never quite be the same ever again. The pain and hurt that we carry will always be there. It is a sentence with no remission." Amélie Delagrange, murdered. Amélie Delagrange, 22, had a passion for the English language and had moved to Britain to further her studies. Ms. Delagrange from Amiens in France had passed her baccalaureate exams with ease and spent 6 weeks living in Manchester as part of a language course. She enjoyed and wanted to return to the UK. She had been living in Twickenham for just 3 months when she was killed. She was working at a pâtisserie in Richmond, had a close circle of both English and French friends, and was happy the court heard. Her parents, Jean-François and Dominique Delagrange, traveled from France to the Old Bailey to hear details of their daughter's death. She was a good student, sensible, and never gave her parents any problems, her mother told the court. Her boyfriend, Olivier L'Enfant, also described her as a sensible girl who thought she lived in a safe area. In a statement, Ms. Delagrange's parents, Dominique and Jean-François, said, "It is nearly 4 years since our lives and our family's lives were so seriously disrupted, descending into a horror, a living nightmare." They added, "We would like to have heard from Bellfield a confession of sorts, some evidence of remorse. In this, we were disappointed." A memorial tree and a bench were placed on Twickenham Green by the local community and her family dedicated to her memory. Kate Sheedy survived. Kate Sheedy, now 21, was the head girl at her convent school in Isleworth at the time of the attack. She had spent the evening saying goodbye to friends after her last day at Gumley House School and was walking home when she was mown down by a car. Ms. Sheedy had organized celebrations for the sixth form leavers and gave a speech remembering her time at the school. She missed her A-levels because of the attack, but was granted her predicted grades AAB by the exam board and is now studying history and drama at York University. The trial heard she remains mentally and physically scarred by the attack. In a statement, Ms. Sheedy said, "On the day I was attacked, I was celebrating about moving on to a new and exciting time in my life. All that hope and excitement was taken from me, and I thought my life had changed forever." The attack meant she attended university a year later than she had hoped. "I will never be able to forget what happened to me. The scars on my body and the memories I have are something I will never be rid of, but hopefully I can move on," she explained. On top of the physical and mental ordeal, Ms. Sheedy said there had also been the additional trauma and stress from the police investigation. Bellfield is controlling and evil. Monday, 25 February 2008, a former nightclub bouncer has been convicted of bludgeoning Marcia McDonnell and Amélie Delagrange to death, and of another savage attack on a woman in southwest London. But what is known about a man who stalked the streets, attacking lone women near bus stops? Levi Bellfield is by all accounts a charismatic and charming man, but he can change in a flash. When we started dealing with him, he came across as very jokey, like he's your best mate, said date Chichi Insp Sutton, who led the murder hunt. But he's a cunning individual, violent. He can switch from being nice to being nasty instantly. Born and raised in West London, Bellfield, 39, prowled for victims on streets he knew intimately. Detectives believe he could be responsible for a number of other attacks other than the 3 he has been convicted of. He had lived and had family in, or had business links with all the locations where his attacks took place. Controlling womanizer. Despite his unattractive appearance in the dock, overweight with slicked back hair and a squeaky voice, he was reputedly a womanizer boasting 11 children by 5 women. Detectives tracked down a number of ex-girlfriends who all described a similar pattern of behavior when they got involved with him. He was lovely at first, charming, then completely controlling and evil. They all said the same, said Date Sergeant Joe Brunt, who spoke to several of them. After a couple of weeks of them being together, Bellfield would take their mobile phone and swap it with another, which contained only his number, saying it was all they needed. He would then stop them from seeing friends' parents or going out without his permission and would constantly phone to check what they were doing. One girlfriend said following an argument, he told her to sit on a stool in the kitchen and not move. He went to bed and she sat there all night. Sergeant Brunt said, "We asked her what she did about going to the toilet, and she said she would rather wet herself than have moved from that stool." That shows how frightened they were of him. Bellfield, a psychology PhD waiting to happen. According to Date Chi Inspi Sutton, was very close to his mother. His father died when he was young. He dotes on his mother and her on him. "It's a troubling relationship," said Date Chi Inspi Sutton. Massive ego. At the time of the attacks, he ran a wheel clamping business which operated in the western suburbs of London with a motley crew of workers with names like Builder Bob and Fat Brian. At times he made good money, and while giving evidence at the Old Bailey, he explained to the jury formula on how to succeed in the clamping business. Bellfield, a former bodybuilder, constantly denied any involvement in the attacks, and detectives could only guess at his motivation. Det Th Insp Sutton explained his own theory. He has a massive ego to feed. He thinks he's God's gift to everyone. He drives around in his car, feels a bit whatever, and sees some young blonde girl. Young blonde girl says, "Go away," and he thinks, "You dare to turn down Levi Bellfield, you're worth nothing." And then she gets a whack over the head. It is shown in the case of Kate Sheedy. She was smart enough to think she didn't like the look of his car and crosses the road. He thinks, "You think you're so clever," and whoosh, he runs her over. While he was under police surveillance, Bellfield was seen driving around in his van, talking to young girls at bus stops. Date Inspi Sutton's theory is also suggested in the timing of Amelie's last movements. CCTV cameras captured her walking towards Twickenham Green after she missed her stop on the bus home. She slowed her pace between the last 2 sightings around the time Bellfield passed her in his van. Date Ch Inspi Sutton said she probably stopped to speak to him. Minutes later, she lay dying from massive head wounds in the middle of a cricket pitch. Victims chosen. He said it was no coincidence all his victims were of a similar appearance. His last girlfriend, Emma Mills, told police Bellfield always chased after small blonde girls with large chests. Bellfield faces a life sentence for his murderous trail of senseless violence. Date Ch Inspi Sutton said, "We looked at a dozen crimes in West London, and we have not been able to eliminate Levi from any of them. I fear we may have only scratched the surface." In the end, justice caught up with Levi Bellfield, but peace did not. In 2008, he was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. A sentence so rare in the UK that it's reserved for only the most dangerous of killers. Even behind bars, Bellfield showed no remorse. He bragged about his crimes, taunted investigators, and later confessed to more murders, including the abduction and killing of 13-year-old Millie Dowler. For the families of his victims, that confession was both a relief and a new kind of torment. It confirmed what they had long suspected, that the man who destroyed their lives had no conscience, no regret, and no soul. One detective described Bellfield as a man who feeds on power, on fear, on control. His victims, Marcia McDonnell, Amélie Delagrange, and Millie Dowler, were bright young and full of promise. They weren't in dangerous places. They weren't taking risks. They were simply living their lives. And yet that was enough to draw the attention of a predator who saw opportunity in innocence. What makes Bellfield's crimes so horrifying isn't just their brutality, it's their randomness. These weren't personal acts of vengeance, they were acts of dominance. He killed because he could. He hunted because it made him feel like a god. The bus stop killer reminded Britain that monsters don't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes they smile, they charm, and they walk among us unnoticed until it's too late. For the detectives who spent years chasing him, Bellfield's capture was a victory tainted by tragedy. They had their killer, but 3 young women would never come home again. Today, Levi Bellfield sits in a high-security cell, forgotten by most, but not by those who remember the lives he took and the fear he spread. Evil may wear many faces, but it always reveals itself in the end. Justice was served, but the streets where he once hunted still whisper the same warning: never trust the ordinary, because evil hides in plain sight. If this story moved you, subscribe for more true crime documentaries that remember the victims, not just the monsters.